Hi, I'm Olivia. Mila's down there on the floor again. I keep dislodging her from moving around, but she'll be back. In fact, she's coming up right now. This is Mila, and we are doing the third book in the Inheritance Games series, The Final Gambit. I need to sit up a little. The Final Gambit. This maybe I need to lower my light a little. Oh, too late now. Well, we'll worry about it later. So when we left the book, we're wrapping up this whole soap opera thing of whose parents. We know who Avery's parents are. We know that Avery's mom is the daughter of we know that Avery's, it's very soap operatic because Avery's mom is the older sister of one of the girls that died when Tobias blew up the house where Toby blew up the house where they thought he died way back before the book started. And also Grayson's cousin died in that. I don't think the other kid is related to anybody. The other kid who died there is related to anybody. He figures out later, but he's not real close in. We found out that Toby is Emily and Rebecca's older brother, and that he's got a daughter who looks just like her Aunt Emily, who was the one that was stringing along Grayson and Jameson back in the day. So onward with the script. The Final Gambit has a really satisfying ending, but the parts leading up to it are okay, I guess. Basically, we ended the Hawthorne legacy with the revelation that Toby has a daughter, Eve, who looks just like her Aunt Emily. And then I go into the thing about who's related to whom. Avery has also claimed something that Toby left for her mother, a metal disc with concentric circles carved into one side. I'm sure you've noticed something's missing. Who's Toby's father? When the Final Gambit opens, we're on the eve of Avery's 18th birthday. Elisa is after Avery to set up a trust fund to keep the money safe once she inherits on her birthday. She also wants Avery to have a big fancy birthday party. Avery isn't sure if she wants a trust. She knows she doesn't want the big fancy birthday party. Elisa sets up the party anyhow, and the invitations get lost. So it ends up being just an elaborate party for the Hawthorns, their retainers, Libby, and Max. Grayson returns from college for the party, and Avery asks him to still consider Hawthorne House his home. After the party, Eve shows up on Avery's doorstep, telling that Toby has been kidnapped. Avery, being a generous, kind individual, takes her in. Being an intelligent individual who's lived in the Hawthorne world for a little over a year, at this point, also doesn't really trust her. We find out that since Tobias was a super genius rivaling Bruce Wayne in intellect, he knew about Eve and had a game set up for the eventuality that Eve would show up. Meanwhile, the man who kidnapped Toby has also set up a puzzle for Avery to try to figure out who he is. In today's episode of As Hawthorne House Turns, remember I said that Eve looks like her Aunt Emily? Yeah, that really knocks Grayson for a loop. The plot is mostly puzzles and games and clues, which I won't go into detail here because it sounds like a pretty dull to just sit here and list clues. Xander also finds his father, Isaiah Alexander, an accomplished engineer and inventor who's currently running an automotive repair shop. Xander becomes the first of the boys whose father actually wants a relationship with him. In fact, Isaiah attempted to get custody of Xander, but couldn't compete with the Hawthorne fortune. So I guess we're headed into spoiler territory already. It's been nice seeing you guys. 4 minutes, I think that's a record. So if you want to stop here, leave a comment, like, subscribe, let me know what you want me to, if you want me to see anything in the future, if you want me to read anything in the future, hit the bell icon. My next video is going to be, it looks like, My Sister the Serial Killer, which should be longer, I hope. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so now the spoilers. Toby's been kidnapped by his own grandfather. There we go. There's the spoiler. Now, okay, maybe not. Tobias made his fortune not from the oil itself, from the patent for a part for an oil drill. I mentioned that in the last video. This was one of 2 patents filed with Tobias's name on it. Both patents were for the same part, but one, which Tobias had filed along with Vincent Flake, and which had an error that would make it not work. The second, which just had Tobias's name on it, was for a better version of the same thing without the error. Blake's son William figured this out and set out for vengeance. He seduced Mallory Laughlin, which is Emily and Rebecca's mom, and got her pregnant with Toby. Mallory, whose mental health has never been fantastic, killed William, who just attacked her, and Tobias hid the body. The person who's taunting Avery is, in fact, Vincent Blake, who wants his son's body returned to him. Avery finds Will's body and sets about a roundabout way to return it to his father by reporting the body to the police. Blake kidnaps Elisa and Grayson, who's finally emerged from under the spells of both Emily and her look-alike niece, trades himself for her. Blake kidnaps Elisa and Grayson, who's finally emerged from under the spells of both Emily and her look-alike niece, trades himself for her. Eventually, Eve tips her hand and goes to her great-grandfather's house. You see, she knows who Toby's father was and that Vincent Blake is her great-grandfather. She has done everything she could in order to gain a share of Blake's fortune when he passes. See, there are 5 discs, like the one that Avery found at the end of the Hawthorne legacy. Each disc represents 20% of Blake's fortune. So the disc that Avery had and Toby took with him is 20% of the inheritance from his grandfather. Eve wants at least one of those discs for herself, and she would ideally like all 5 of them. And she gets her chance. Avery decides to play chess for Toby's freedom. Now remember, back at the beginning, this is part of the reason why I love the series. Back at the beginning, how did we open the series? We opened the series by Avery playing chess against Toby and beating him. Avery, Eve, and Toby play a round-robin tournament of chess. If Avery wins both games, she gets Grayson, and Blake will not say anything about the death of Sheffield Grayson. If Eve wins both games, she gets all five discs. Toby throws his game against Eve and loses to Avery, so he has to promise to change his name to Tobias Blake and stay with Blake. Avery also throws her game against Eve, making it look like she isn't as good as she actually is. Then she begs Blake for a chance to play against him, saying he can become trustee of her estate if he wins, and if he loses, he will back off for good, including keeping mum about the death of Sheffield Grayson. She wins. So, Avery leaves with Grayson and the assurance that Blake will no longer come for her or anyone close to her. But the book doesn't end there. We still have the question of whether Avery would choose to put her money in a trust. She totally doesn't. She instead calculates how much money she needs to keep to have more money than she'll ever need, and she promises to give the rest away, both to charities and also individuals. And the book ends on these words, and it's just me to read less than 7 paragraphs. 7 paragraphs. That's a lot of stuff to read. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's the... I should have bookmarked this. Where are we? Every year I'll be hosting a contest with substantial life-changing prize money. Some years the game will be open to the general public. Others, well, maybe you'll find yourself on the receiving end of the world's most exclusive invitation. This wasn't the most responsible way to spend the money, but once I'd had the idea, I couldn't shake it. And once I'd mentioned it to Jameson, there was no turning back. The game, the interviewer's eyes were alight. These puzzles, they'll be of your making? I smiled. I'll have help. Not just the boys. Elise had sometime joined in Tobias Hawthorne's games growing up. Oren was running logistics for me. Rebecca and Thea, in combined force, were downright diabolical in their contributions to what I'd been calling the grandest game. When will the first game start? The woman across me from asks. That was the question I'd been waiting for. I held up the gold card in my hand and brandished it at the camera, design out. The game, my voice said, my voice ripe with promise, starts right now. So that's the next series in the series, is the grandest game series, which, from what I can tell, is different people participating in the games that Avery and her family and friends and retainers and other people involved have set up in order to give people life-changing prize money. I would love to be given life-changing prize money. Wouldn't everybody? So that's how the final Gambit ends. Like I said, most of the middle part is just those clues and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah. But, we finally know who almost everybody in the books is. We're still missing one, though. You may notice we are still missing Jameson's father. Now, by process of elimination, Mr. Dash's father's last name was Dash. Grayson's father's last name is Grayson. Alexander's father's last name is Alexander. So, what do you think? Jameson's father's last name is going to be Smith, probably, right? Anyway, so we that's where we end the Inheritance Games books. Definitely satisfying all the way through. Um, dips a little in the middle of the third book, but I really enjoyed all three books. And I have the next book featuring these characters is called The Brothers Hawthorne, and it's about Jameson and I want to say it's Grayson again. Um, we Xander has Barb's relationship with his dad, by the way, and they're doing inventions and stuff. And he'll probably have something, probably Xander's dad will have something to do with the games too. So I don't know what happens in that one. I have it's still in my TBR pile, and I don't know if I've bought the first Grandest Game book or not. So we'll see if I've bought the first Grandest Game book, and if I do, I'll be probably talking about that. Unless those two books are very disappointing, I'll be talking about them later. So I will see you guys later. You know the drill. Leave recommendations. Like I said, I'm gonna eventually start hopefully doing parks and museums and stuff, and you can recommend those to me as well. In the comments, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, do all those exciting things. Tell your friends, hey, there's some strange lady on the internet talking about books that nobody wants to hear about. So I will talk to you later, and I'll see you in the next one.